Well. I am back on K-pop and pop-adjacent YouTube after like 2 years, blessing everyone with my rants. Well, to preface this one, because a lot of people won't like it, I am born and raised in California, USA, love me or hate me. Let's be respectful and understanding in the comments, because this video is only meant as a conversation. If you've been anywhere on the internet lately, you've probably seen Europeans and Americans going at each other's throats over Adele's new song. Two things are becoming blatantly apparent. Number one, Americans do not understand the concept of soft power and American privilege. And number two, Europeans have been creating a propagandized view of Americans and do not understand what life in the United States is actually like. Let's go with the Americans' blind spot first. When international viewers pointed out the global advantages Americans hold, a lot of American commenters replied with, "I'm struggling here. How am I privileged?" But this debate showed that a lot of people are confusing domestic struggles with global privilege and completely ignoring the concept of soft power. To get the obvious disclaimers out of the way, of course, systemic inequality, poverty, and racial injustice in the US are very real. Saying someone has global-scale privilege doesn't mean their life at home is easy or that marginalization doesn't exist. Privilege isn't a single switch. It exists on multiple levels, but those inequalities exist everywhere. There's a difference between domestic privilege, like class or racial dynamics within a country, and global privilege. You can be disenfranchised at home while still benefiting from the global infrastructure, passport power, currency dominance, and cultural reach of being from the world's leading superpower. Americans generally don't understand the concept of soft power. Soft power is a nation's ability to influence global culture, values, and opinions, and no nation on earth holds more soft power than the United States. American media, music, movies, and political discourse set the baseline for global pop culture. When an issue happens in the US, the whole world talks about it. But when a crisis or cultural shift happens in, say, Eastern Europe, it rarely makes global headlines. When I was traveling in Asia, people would run up to me excitedly to practice their English. I could have been from Europe and not spoken English, but they saw a white person and assumed I was American. Not English or Australian, they spoke distinctly American English. Likewise, when I visited Europe last, it was in Ireland, there was American news on the TV. The most famous person in the United States is the most famous person in the entire world. The most famous person in Serbia is only the most famous person in Serbia. When you see immigrants coming to America, quote, for better opportunities, they mean it. Everyone in the world is taught to think if they want to accomplish anything in life, they have to get to America. Not get to Los Angeles, America, anywhere in it. It's true that not everyone gets the American dream. I live in California, and it would take me 8 to 10 hours to drive to Los Angeles. For people across the country, it would be days' worth of driving, thousands of dollars for flights, etc. But here's the problem. The very idea of the American dream is unique precisely because it was built around the unmatched economic and cultural mobility of the US to many outside the US. Complaining that the American dream isn't guaranteed misses the point that the concept doesn't even exist for most of the world. Your barrier to the American dream is being poor, being black, being trans. Europeans' barrier is not being American. You can argue that racial or economic privilege hold more weight in making your dreams come true, sure. But there's no point arguing over whether the privilege of being American exists or not, because it does, point blank period. And yes, believe it or not, we still have economic mobility. Think about how many people in Adele's own industry, the music industry, who have blown up on TikTok over the last few years and kickstarted a career from nothing. Every single one was speaking English, most of them being from the United States. There isn't a similar structure like this in other places. The famous people in America are famous everywhere and financially supported by everyone in the world. Meanwhile, Americans themselves don't give a rat's ass about any other country unless they have a vested interest. Do you like Korean culture because you're interested in K-pop? That's soft power. Being interested in a country because you've heard of it through something relatable to you. Everyone has that with the United States. Everyone on the globe understands your lingo, your culture, your food, your style. Whether they like Americans or not, And trust me, I face some discrimination when I travel in certain places for being American, mainly European countries. I do often wish I could travel to more countries without being judged immediately by my accent, but I don't want to take for granted that people actually know everything about my culture already. Adela already spoke about this on the show. Let's have a look back at what she said.
How the Americans experience what a Slovak would experience all the time. We don't ever get represented ever.
The American girls on Dream Academy weren't voted for as much for the same reason Americans don't watch the World Cup. No one in America cares about representation on a global scale because we already have so much of it. Versus Adela from Eastern Europe never had anyone to look up to from Slovakia. She was raised her whole life knowing no one else in the whole world gave a fuck about her culture and her homeland. She then had to completely abandon her culture, family, language, and identity in order to move 15 hours across the globe for even the slightest chance at achieving her dreams. Not to mention passport power. An American has one of the world's strongest passports. There are many countries where no one is free to leave their country because their passport isn't accepted in other places. People are trapped in horrific poverty due to this. Also, the world's currency is US dollar. The world reserve currency, that is. I am poor in America. Well, when your income is translated to other countries, you still have massive purchasing power over them. Other countries also don't have access to things like PayPal, so they can't just get on YouTube and start trying to make money like an American. Even if they did, YouTube and TikTok algorithms, basically every algorithm, is catered to American preferences for content. Not to say there isn't pockets of global content, but again, it's just pockets. How many creators have you seen who are from a different language-speaking country, but they make videos in English specifically to get more views? And YouTube pays American creators significantly more per 1,000 views than in Eastern European countries. The entire system of the world's entertainment industry was built around the United States and catered for the United States. Now imagine being from Slovakia and hearing an American say, "But I'm nowhere near Los Angeles." As though that is anywhere close to the point. I don't think the song Ain't in LA can't be identified with by Americans. I identify with it. Adela has reposted some Americans identifying with it. The song is about not needing to be where everyone else is, literally or figuratively. About embracing your individual strength without anything fancy or flashy. If that adversity for you is living in Appalachia and being extremely poor, hell yeah, you are a bad bitch. If that adversity is fighting in a country that's tearing down your civil rights, you're a bad bitch. If that adversity is being Slovak and feeling isolated from an American-dominated world, you're a bad bitch. An Eastern European has white privilege, but not American privilege. A Black American has American privilege, but clearly not white privilege. A rich girl in Norway has class privilege, but a poor girl in Montana has American privilege. A white poor person in the United States has white privilege and American privilege, but no class privilege. All of these things can be a hindrance on your life, and Europeans claiming Americans don't experience any type of privilege is insanely ignorant. But I haven't seen a single American who actually understands that there's a separate type of privilege just for us. If I hadn't traveled as much as I have, I probably would be ignorant to that too. But when you hear so many people strive for going to the USA, act flattered that an American would ever care to visit their country, or ask a billion questions about your culture when you don't know anything about theirs, you start to get humbled a bit as an American. And I'd like to impart some of that understanding on the people watching this. Now let's talk about the Europeans. This is a video of an American who lives in the Netherlands saying very politely that it sucks to have people constantly discriminating against him and bringing his culture down while also wearing all American brands and consuming content from the USA. These are some of the comments on that video. Let's look at the 5 signs of propaganda, shall we? 1. Creating an us versus them mentality. For example, putting all Americans into the boat of being stupid, fat, and ignorant to the rest of the world. This is clearly not true, but it fosters an environment where Americans are the clear enemy, to be defeated simply due to a fact about themselves. Imagine saying everyone in India is fat and stupid, and hating on them and their culture whenever they visit your country. That would be seen as xenophobic. 2. Creating negative emotions like fear or hate. Clearly painting an image that every American is a Trump-loving MAGA is an easy way to make people hate all Americans because you're ignoring the millions of Americans who otherwise are exactly like you. 3. Creating a scapegoat for the world's problems. Saying the United States democratically voted for the man destroying the world is a farce. If you know anything about the United States, you know we are not a democracy, we are a democratic republic. Trump lost the first election he was in by 3 million votes, and he still became the president. That's how citizens united, the Electoral College, gerrymandering, and extreme voter suppression work. Friendly reminder to British people in particular that Nigel won his election in the same year that Donald Trump did with a sweeping majority, and that election was actually a Democratic vote. The United States presidential election is not a Democratic vote. And that is not the only country with a conservative sweeping trend in the government. 4. Centering nationalism. Lol. Clearly, the overall white supremacist idea that Europeans are better than another group of people is nationalist. 5. Spreading misinformation. This comment straight up says Americans think Europe is a country. There's dumb people everywhere, so I'm sure some people do, but I've lived here my whole life, and not a single person I've ever met can't name at least the Western European countries. Taking it back to Ain't in LA, saying everyone in Europe is better off financially than even an American in Appalachia is fucking insane. This is Appalachia. Running water is a luxury. District 12 was based on it. The idea that all Americans are like the Hunger Games capital is laughable, and it's propaganda. A lot of Europeans want to think of Americans as these rich, spoiled brats who don't care about anyone but ourselves and overindulge in everything. This is the definition of propaganda. I was talking to someone on Hinge from the UK, and he straight up asked me one morning how life was in the land of the bigots. I live in California. Not a single person I know in my local area voted Trump. We actively talk shit about him and call people Trumpies as insults even in my workplace. This is the United States, with where I live circled. Blue represents liberals and red represents conservatives. This is the UK, with where he lives circled. Red represents liberal and blue represents conservative. But of course, I know exactly what anti-American propaganda he's been seeing. Because I've been to the UK and Ireland, and I've seen it too. Not a single good protest against Trump, against ICE, etc. was shown the entirety of the time I was there. People make fun of kids dying in school shootings because, quote, no one in the United States does anything about it. Mind you, this is the United States. And so is this. Anyways, I'm done talking about this. Thank you for watching. Peace out.